Messenger is a story about Gary Webb, an investigative reporter.
He came across a story about the relationship between the CIA and drug dealers who were bringing massive amounts of cocaine into Los Angeles in the 80s.
National security and crack cocaine in the same sentence? Does that not sound strange to you?
Crack became an epidemic because it was very cheap and highly, highly addictive. And that was sort of the ripple effect of it.
When Gary's story was released, the firestorm it ignited, the most important and the most emotionally charged was in the black community.
Who's this? He's a reporter.
Michael K. Williams is playing Ricky Ross, who was the largest dealer of crack cocaine in Los Angeles.
I was buying 100 kilos a week, selling $3 million a day. Man, it was raining coke.
I reached out to Rick. He and I had many conversations over the phone. It was important for me not to portray him as just a common street thug. There's a lot of elements to Rick that the public probably doesn't know.
Grew up in South Central. When I started selling drugs, I did it to give me a jump start that I had no other way of getting.
The area was poverty-stricken, little to no opportunities job-wise.
The devastation has been twofold because one, we've had thousands of people that get addicted to the drugs, and then we have thousands of more that wind up going to prison. I met Gary around 96 while I was in prison. Some of the worst time in my life. Life without the possibility of parole. I was never supposed to go home again. When the story first broke, I was like, how could a guy like me be tied into something so big? It was hard for me to swallow. You know, Gary believed in his story when nobody else did. He shared some light on our government that nobody else had ever done before. When you find somebody that feels so strongly about these issues that they're willing to sacrifice and put their reputation and their lives and everything on the line, you can't do nothing but salute them.
Some fancy information you have there. Dangerous.
I have a newfound respect for the journalists that risked their life to tell me the truth.
We're talking about something that affects a lot of communities and a lot of people around this country.
Kill the Messenger is very much about that there are victims, there are people who are left behind. It was very important to end the film with people asking questions and being suspicious. Let's just hope that those questions continue to be asked.
This is a true story. Some stories are just too true to tell.
Where will you be for the revolution?
This is a topic that no one seems to want to address, yet apparently it's true. It's well documented, and yet everyone at the time just turned their head and ignored it. So anyway, I'm going to stick this in your face and give you sort of an overview of the topic, especially to young people who might not have even heard about it. The Central Intelligence Agency has been accused of importing crack cocaine into the United States, particularly during the 80s. These allegations stem from the Iran-Contra affair, where the CIA was involved in arms deals with Iran and covertly supported the Contras, a right-wing rebel group in Nicaragua. Some claim that the CIA allowed drug trafficking in order to financially support the Contras, with crack cocaine being a significant part of the scheme. Now, this was all the rage back during the Reagan administration, and Oliver North, he got in trouble and then went and testified, and everybody thought he was such a hero. But ultimately, when it gets right down to it, selling arms to Iran really probably wasn't even illegal. It was unpopular, but I don't think it was necessarily illegal. Just a matter of statecraft. The president has the authority to do that. However, I think that the Iran-Contra scandal served as kind of a red herring, and it deflected people's attention away from what was really insidiously evil, that being the importation of crack cocaine into the United States. The small town of Mena, Arkansas has been linked to drug smuggling in the CIA. The local airport was used to transport large quantities of cocaine, with the government agencies turning a blind eye to the operations. This was all done when Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, before he became president, and you'll see what he had to say about it in a minute. It wasn't harmless. I mean, it wasn't just the drugs either. There were a couple of young teenage boys who stumbled upon the place, and they paid for it with their lives because of what they saw. They were on some railroad tracks, and a train ran over them. And the official coroner's report said that they had fallen asleep on railroad tracks, and that's why they got killed. Now, let's just listen to what old Slick Willie had to say about it.
The Republicans are trying to blame you for the existence of a small air base at Mena, Arkansas. This base was set up by George Bush and Oliver North and the CIA to help the Iran-Contras, and they brought in plane load after plane load of cocaine there for sale in the United States. And then they took the money and bought weapons and took them back to the Contras, all of which was illegal, as you know, under the Bolin Act. But tell me, did they tell you that this had to be in existence because of national security?
Well, let me answer the question. No, they didn't tell me anything about it. They didn't say anything to me about it. The airport in question and all the events in question were the subject of state and federal inquiries. It was primarily a matter for federal jurisdiction. The state really had next to nothing to do with it. The local prosecutor did conduct an investigation based on what was within the jurisdiction of state law. The rest of it was under the jurisdiction of the United States attorneys who were appointed successively by previous administrations. We had nothing, zero, to do with it, and everybody who's ever looked into it knows that.
Now, notice something here. He didn't say it didn't happen. Did you notice that? He said that no one told him about it. Okay? The statement itself implies that it did happen because he said no one told him about it. He didn't say no one told him about any allegations. No one told him about any suspicions. No, he said no one ever told me about it. Okay? Now that I think about it, I neglected to mention something that elderly lady had brought out. This was all supervised by George Bush, Daddy Bush, Poppy. He was the president, or he was a president. He was the head of the CIA at the time. Now think about that. A president of the United States importing crack cocaine. Think about that. Anyway, there's a lot of testimony from whistleblowers. Several individuals, including former law enforcement officers and government officials, have come forward with allegations of CIA involvement in the drug trafficking. And I'm going to go over a few of them here. There's quite a few. Michael Rupert, a former Los Angeles Police Department officer. Terry Reid, a former Air Force intelligence officer. Celerino Castillo, a former DEA agent. Bo Gritz, a former Green Beret and CIA operative. Chip Tatum, a former CIA operative. Al Martin, a former member of the Office of Naval Intelligence. And Michael Levine, a former DEA agent. So as you can see, these ain't a bunch of damn crackpots. Not at all. These are respectable men, heavy hitters. And here they are coming out and telling everybody about it, and yet nothing was ever done. Now, there have been 2 movies made about this whole affair. One was called American Made, and is about a guy named Barry Seal, who was a pilot, and he was flying for these guys. Seal was the one bringing all that shit into Mena, Arkansas. That's basically how everybody found out about it, about the location. Barry Seal was an American pilot, drug smuggler, and informant who was a key figure in the Iran-Contra affair. He worked for the Medellin cartel, flying shipments of cocaine from Colombia to the United States. Seal was arrested in 1983 and agreed to become an informant for the Drug Enforcement Administration to avoid a lengthy prison sentence. He provided evidence against the Medellin cartel and Sandinista government of Nicaragua, which allegedly led to the Iran-Contra affair. Seal's involvement with the CIA and the Contras has been a subject of controversy, with some claiming that he was a CIA asset used to funnel money and drugs to support the Contras. Barry Seal was murdered in 1986 by members of the Medellin cartel in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And if you want to get an overview of what was going on, just Watch the movie. There's a picture of him there with Pablo Escobar, probably at the racetracks. And there's another picture of him without the beard. He was kind of a colorful figure, and it's an entertaining movie. I would suggest you watch it. It's pretty cool. However, if you do watch these movies, you might want to be cognizant that movies like this are almost always limited hangouts. You know, if you don't know what that is, a limited hangout is when you're about to get caught doing something, you come forward and you only confess to the least damning charges. In other words, if you get your fingers caught in a cookie jar, you say, "Oh, Mama, I only took 2 cookies," when in fact, you know, you took a whole fistful. "Oh, I'm sorry, I just took 1," when in fact, you took a lot more than that. That's a limited hangout. But anyway, this is going to bring us on to Gary Webb. He's a reporter. The movie about him is called Kill the Messenger, and it's a good one, too. It's depressing as shit. But anyway, Gary Webb was an investigative journalist who gained national attention in 1996 for his Dark Alliance series, published in the San Jose Mercury News. The series alleged that the CIA was involved in drug trafficking during the 80s, specifically by allowing Nicaraguan Contras to smuggle cocaine into the United States to raise funds for their fight against the Sandinista government. Webb's reporting was based on extensive interviews and documents, including testimony from whistleblowers and drug dealers. However, his work was met with intense criticism from the mainstream media and government. Gee, what a surprise. Who accused him of making unfounded allegations. Gary Webb was faced significant backlash and was eventually pushed out of the journalism industry. He passed away in 2004, and his work has since been revisited and re-examined by journalists and researchers, with some arguing that his reporting was accurate and instrumental in exposing the CIA's alleged involvement in drug trafficking during the 1980s. Yeah, Mr. Webb killed himself. He killed himself, shot himself in the head. Twice. Then once they got it into the country, they deliberately targeted black neighborhoods. Think about that. They targeted black neighborhoods with all this fucking crack. The targeting of predominantly black neighborhoods by drug traffickers, including those allegedly affiliated with the CIA, can be attributed to several factors. One reason is the economic disparities and social conditions present in many black communities during the 1980s, which made them more vulnerable to drug-related crime. These communities often lacked economic opportunities, social services, and law enforcement resources, making it easier for drug dealers to establish a foothold. Additionally, the drug trade provided a lucrative income for individuals who were struggling to make ends meet, further fueling the problem. Furthermore, the harsher sentencing guidelines for crack cocaine compared to powdered cocaine disproportionately affected black communities, leading to a higher number of black individuals being incarcerated for drug offenses. Oh, and I remember, man, let's get crack. You know, let's destroy the crack trade. I remember Joe Biden standing up saying that if you got caught with crack, you'd go to jail, prison for a significantly increased sentence other than with powdered cocaine, which is what all the white folks were snorting. And then also think about it. You know, if you're gonna feed all these guys into the prison system, you're gonna get free labor, slave labor, doing shit like this kind of stuff that the prisoners do. And of course, that's when the private prison system got started. And, you know, I haven't ever heard this, but I'd bet you any amount of money that all these congressmen and senators were investing in those private prisons, seeing to it that they made a good profit.
We're top officials of this Contra Army. And what we found was that they were selling this stuff in South Central, which is, you know, predominantly black section of Los Angeles, immediately before the outbreak of the crack cocaine epidemic. They started selling powder, tons and tons and tons of powder cocaine going into this one small area of the city. And from there, they sold it to Freeway Rick. And Freeway Rick took the powder, turned it into crack, and starting in 1983, 1984, began distributing it to predominantly the gangs, the Crips and the Bloods.